Hello everyone, Donna here. It's Tuesday, so it's time for me to share. Today I decided I would talk about fear of missing out, FOMO. This week I had to cancel some travel plans. I had planned on going to New Orleans in June, but it's not going to work out, and I'm totally bummed about it, but I'll get over it. I'm pretty good at talking myself down from the ledge in that way. And it made me think about the fear of missing out. What am I missing out by not going to New Orleans this particular June? What happens if I go next June or in November? And there were many things I've had to miss out on because of my chronic illness. Now, the difference is when you're really, really in the thick of pain, despite what you want to do, you don't really have the energy to focus on what you're missing out on because you're missing out on everything, missing out on your daily life. The daily things that we take for granted is making your own cup of coffee, changing the sheets in your bed, brushing your teeth daily. So everything's a struggle. And for me, my experience has been that you're just too focused on surviving the pain of the moment that it encapsulates every waking thought and second and nerve center in your body, that what I'm missing out on doesn't matter, because what I'm really missing out on is feeling like a healthy human being. I don't want to say normal because I don't know what normal is, but healthy. That's what you're missing out on most of all. And without that, nothing else matters. Now, that aside, I'm a person that believes I should never miss out on anything, any opportunity, anything I really want to see or do, just because I don't have someone to go with or it's not completely convenient. Expense is a separate thing because if you can't afford to go, you can't afford to go. But I try to really make myself do the things that I want to do because I don't want to miss out on anything. And that's partly why I have an annual to-do list on my blog, thequeenoffuckingeverything.com. And I'm actually going to be writing up this year's to-do list today, so it's an appropriate topic, fear of missing out. My blog was created on March 2nd, 2011. So if you're asking to yourself, why is this girl writing a to-do list in the middle of the year? For me, it's seasonal. I do it every April after my anniversary has passed and try to figure out where I'm going from here till next April. Okay. So the fear of missing out. If you have that fear, you understand it, then my question is, what happens if you actually get to do the things you planned on doing, but you're still missing out? And I'll explain. In the height of my illness, I forced myself, by the grace of God, to do many things, to go many places, many special events in my life, even though I wasn't well enough. And when you have a neurological illness, for me, my chronic migraines, my memories are affected. You can say sometimes you could see when I'm speaking, I lose my words very easily. For some reason, it doesn't happen when I'm writing, but when I'm speaking, I lose my thoughts easily. I don't know if that's from some of the drugs I've taken in the past or my brain is still started healing. But the memory I want to share first, to give clarity to what I mean about the fear of missing out, even when you're there, is my beloved Aunt Ray's 60th birthday, or 65th birthday. See, I don't even remember what it was. It was about 2012. My family was having a very big party. I went. I even remember what I wore. But what I remember most specifically is maybe a couple of years ago looking back on those pictures and looking at my face. I had grayish, white colored skin. I looked into my eyes in the picture and I can see that I wasn't there. That dead behind the eyes kind of a thing. Because I was white knuckling it the whole time. I was dizzy and weak and overstimulated. With chronic migraines, when there's too much going on, there's too much noise, there's too many people coming at you, it's disorienting because your body is struggling so hard, your brain is working so hard to get through every little detail. You have to put so much more effort into minute things, like brushing your teeth, like putting on earrings, like putting on your pants. You have to focus so hard that when additional stimuli come into the room and you're not used to it and you still don't feel well, it's too much. Now, this was a small gathering, maybe 100 people, maybe 80. I have no real idea. But all people that I knew. And so just the act of being an Italian family and having to say hello to everybody and literally their mother was exhausting, physically exhausting. Now, again, I'm a person that always wanted to pretend or appear that I was doing better than I was. So you just sort of like sitting there standing like a deer in headlights going through the motions. I remember this for some reason, that at that party someone said to me, "Well, you don't look very good." And I replied, "Well, I don't feel very good." So I guess that's par for the course. A year before that, I had gone to an old family friend's wedding. And it was at Gargiulo's here in Brooklyn, a very famous place. And talk about being overstimulated. The lights, the DJ. DJs are my nemesis. I love a good dance mix, but the lights and the smoke or whatever that's going on is like, just kill me now. I remember flashes of that day. Again, I remember what I wore for some reason. And I remember that I had a small digital camera at the time. This is like 2011. And I'd taken a whole bunch of really great pictures. And when I went back to my table to review them, I accidentally deleted them because, again, my head was overstimulated. I was like pretty much in the dark. And my hands were always shaking at that time, trembling from the drugs and the pain. And I burst out into hysterical crying because I deleted all the great pictures I had just taken. And of course, I was going to run around the room trying to recreate things that had already happened. I cried a lot that night, actually. I cried the entire way home in the car because my head was throbbing. And I just... It's weird that it makes me emotional now because I've thought about it so often and it didn't make me emotional those times. But I just wanted to feel normal. I was missing out. I didn't have the fear of missing out. I was actually missing out on partaking in things that were important to me and enjoying them like the people around me were. I think sometimes that's harder. To be in a room with people and you're watching them have the experience you wish you were having, even though you're there, you're not having it. Because you're not in your right mind, you're not well. And so when people tell you, when you have good health, you have everything, it's really true. Money is important, don't get it twisted, but health is everything. So when I talk about persevering and fear of missing out, I never wanted to miss out, even when I was sick. So, brief coffee intermission. I would force myself to do the things that I had planned, big things, like special events and like vacations. In 2011, shortly before I began going to the neurologist that I go to now, and I'll talk much more in depth about this woman in my next episode, most likely, I took a trip to Chicago with my mother. I love Chicago. If you've read any of my blogs, Google the Queen of Fucking Everything Chicago. Many, many posts will come up. And the first thing that I ever wrote about Chicago, those were the exact words. I wrote, I love Chicago. It's my kind of town, and I hope to move there sometime soon. But sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze. But that time I was very, very sick. And I remember flashes of my trip. I also happened to have a terrible, terrible head cold, which was a fantastic combination for someone with chronic migraine disease. When you get a sinus infection, the fun just doesn't stop. I remember being on the bathroom floor in my hotel room with my mother. I had tickets to go on a Frank Lloyd Wright walking tour in Oak Park, Illinois, which is something everyone should do once in their life. And I had been already, but I wanted my mom to go, and I wanted her to go with me. So I remember just rallying from the bathroom floor, going into the bed and closing my eyes and explaining to my mother I had to find the number for the tour group in my phone to see if we can get on a later tour just so I could rest a little bit. I dragged myself to the tour somehow. I don't really know. And then later on we went to the Navy Pier to get a bite to eat. That was when the overstimulation took place again. The crowds, it's like a gigantic food court. And I couldn't find my mother because the thought of having to concentrate on what she looked like, what she was wearing, where she should be, was just too much. And the panic that sets in from the anxiety, because as it is, I'm hanging on by a thread. and it was just too much. Of course, she found me rather in a few minutes, but it was just exhausting. And while I remember a lot about that trip, probably because I love Chicago so much and I love the things that I do in Chicago, a lot of me wasn't in Chicago. And a lot of me isn't in the memories. There are these like fogs. I get flashes, sort of, like amnesia. Another great example is probably that same year. I guess that was a bad year, it turns out. Worse than I thought. I went to see Annie Leibovitz at 92nd Y in New York City. Now, Annie Leibovitz is a photography god, and I have all of her works. I love her, and I had added these tickets for a long time. I also love the 92nd Street Y. Look it up if you're in New York City. They have a lot of great events. And I forced myself to go, and I was going solo. I was taking public transportation, all things that were probably a gigantic mistake. I was too sick to drive, but I was going alone, and I guess public transportation seemed like the best way. I remember where I was sitting in the 92nd Street Y. I was sitting in the front with the seat all the way in the end of the aisle, seat closest to the wall. I had my head leaning against the wall the entire time she spoke. I remember what she said and what she showed, the images she showed, because I was concentrating on her so hard, and probably just because I loved her so much. But then, the end, we had to wait online if you wanted to get your book autographed and a photo with her, which, of course, I did. It was like a 2.5-hour wait. Now, I'd come this far, I wasn't going to give up. And I was sitting there with her book, and if you've ever had any of her books, they're heavy as hell, like swaying to the side. I was on a lot of medication. I was in a lot of really serious pain. And I remember the two girls in front of me, and they were having some kind of inane conversation. But I remember focusing so hard on their storytelling just to be able to get through the next minute. Like, what was this girl going to say next that was more ridiculous than whatever it is she was saying already? And how I got home sort of seems like a miracle, but I was glad that I went. And not even in terms of events. When you have a fear of missing out, I missed out on strange things, like wearing the shoes that are in my closet. It sounds ridiculous, I know. But I've recently found shoes I haven't seen in 10 years. Now, of course, no one moved them. They were in that same exact spot, but I haven't worn them because I kind of forgot about them. Or I was struggling day to day, and whatever shoes I had in front of me were the shoes I was wearing. I didn't wear earrings, something my mother's gigantic pet peeve is. She always wants me to wear earrings whether I'm wearing makeup or not. And A, part of it's because I don't care. And B, the other part was that earrings hurt. My earlobes were very sensitive. My hair hurt a lot of the time. Sometimes it still does. And so it's hard to explain to someone that doesn't understand that, no, I that extra ounce, I can't take it. Can't have anything on me that doesn't necessarily need to be on me. And so I'm sort of rediscovering myself and rediscovering my wardrobe, who I am now. Now that I've gone through this, I don't know, what do you call it? I don't want to say travesty. I don't want to say anything that's not true. This illness, the height of this illness for now, it might come back to that degree. God, I hope not, but I can't foresee the future. It's changed who I am. The girl that I was before I got really sick with my chronic migraines, I'm no longer. A lot of that has to do with time and place and growing anyway, but most of it is because of the illness. The things the illness taught me about myself, my strength, my real inner strength and superpower is being able to handle anything by myself. I know now that I can take care of myself to the fullest. Emotionally, physically, mentally, I can do it. And so now I'm sort of going through my stuff and finding relics of the girl that I used to be. The shoes are a great example. Especially heels. I hate heels, but I had a lot of them. And I never wore them because I was already feeling dizzy and tipsy without them. So why I couldn't walk in heels. Literally, I couldn't walk in my own footsteps. But now I sort of can. And I always feel like I have this alter ego. I call it Sybil. If you've never seen the made-for-TV movie series Sybil featuring Sally Field, I want to say from the 80s, I'm not really positive. It's phenomenal. It's about this woman who has multiple personality disorder. And she blacks out when one personality takes over. So she wakes up places she doesn't know how she got there. She's wearing clothing that she didn't purchase. She's has food that she didn't make. And it's kind of what I feel like sometimes. I, Donna, today am finding out with a girl that I used to be, the things that she liked to do, the things that she has, all that kind of stuff. And so, for me at least, it's been a positive experience. And I no longer fear missing out on anything, whether it's because of my chronic migraines or just circumstances of my life. I've learned that being healthy in the moment is what I have to be grateful for, even when I don't feel like being grateful for it, and taking advantage of all the other things that are in front of me. So while I'm not going to New Orleans this June, no lie, I will miss you. I'm going to do a lot of other great things that I've never done before in New York City and around. And I'm going to see people that I love and enjoy those moments because I know that they are fleeting and precious. So, for all of you that have the fear of missing out, even while you're someplace, I feel your pain. And I hope you have a migraine free week and we can talk some more next time. Till then.